welcome to our channel, and today we're going to chat about what choices kids can and can't make. Because after making our documentary, I just want you to know that the kids don't completely run riot in our home as they'd have it made out. And no, it is true that we don't have set rules, so we don't have bedtimes, meal times. What else don't we do? We don't force them to clean themselves, to brush their teeth, to take baths, to cut their hair and style their hair a particular way. What other things?
I don't even style my own hair a
No,
particular way.
anything to do with their body is their choice, really. It doesn't really affect anyone else but themselves, so they get agency over what they do with their own body. But it doesn't mean we don't have boundaries. So the difference is that the rules that most adults set are enforced on the child, and they don't have the ability to negotiate and have some input into their lives. And so we feel it's really important that the kids are able to, work in cooperation with us and have some say over their own bodies and their own lives. And that includes things like what and how they learn and spend their time. So this includes screen time as well. There's a big taboo over screen time, I think, over is it addictive, is it not? I'll post a link in the comment to a very interesting article on that one. And we really feel that the choices that children can't make are involving things that are just not reversible and immediate danger. Everything else, they should be able to have the opportunity to learn to self-regulate and make up their own minds about. So things that are a definite no for me are things like Gillick competency, which is a new one coming, I think, into schools, where children are afforded the opportunity to decide if they wish to experiment with a new experimental mRNA injection to put into their body, when even the adults around them don't know the long-term side effects of it. So that for me is a decision that a child, of course, is not able to make because they don't have all the information and we don't have all the information about it. Other things include hormone blockers and altering the chemistry of their body. They can't possibly know the long-term implications of that. Whereas, milder things like teeth brushing, it's still on the fence whether even brushing your teeth keeps cavities away. And it's holistic dentists will tell you it's all about your diet
When
and
was the last
your
time
emotional
when was
state.
the last time you brushed your teeth?
I brush my teeth, but
I don't.
I've lost
Not
teeth
really.
and I've had cavities. Doesn't prevent anything.
Brushing teeth used to create like a shiver through my spine every time I touched it.
Yeah,
So
and I mean,
when I learned that you could actually strengthen your teeth from within, as in the dietary choices that you make, the amount of emotional stress, physical stress you're under, your body's basically ability to regenerate itself, then all of a sudden you realise that you can complete a lot of these tasks by looking after yourself in a very holistic approach to life. So no, your teeth do not fall out if you do not brush your teeth, but they will fall out if you abuse yourself in various ways, and most children won't. But yes, of course, they can get a bit carried away with the old sugar rush, as we all know. But if you practice kind of almost like what you preach, as in you turn around and you show them growing your own food, eating your own food, wild foraging, so on and so forth, they do learn to kind of create a balance. They might go out of balance, but sometimes to find balance, you've got to go out of balance. You've got to feel the negative effects of making unhealthy choices, such as having a cavity, for example, or feeling sick, etc., etc.
yeah. So our eldest didn't really want to brush his teeth at all, and then he did get. I think he's had one cavity, hasn't he? He's 11
well,
years.
he went into a bit of a sugar. So he was raised on essentially raw vegan, very low sugar, very kind of natural whole food, sprouting, fermenting, all that sort of jazz. And then he found the lovely world of refined sugar. It was just a natural thing that happened in his life. His friends were doing it. He wanted to try it. He gave it a go, and then it became like, whoa, Pandora's box had opened for him, and he took it too far. But he's now learnt to self-regulate. He still enjoys his sweets. He still enjoys his cake and all that sort of jazz. But he will eat nature's selection of natural foods as well. So
Yeah,
pain is
this
sometimes a
idea of
learning curve.
addiction with food and screens, or like, I think if you constantly are reliant on somebody else telling you what is too much and too little, then you're just going to grow up and you're going to end up with insomnia because you've never learned to put yourself to bed when you're tired, and
Mm.
you're going to end up binging on alcohol because you've never learned to negotiate with the forbidden fruits and be able to regulate that yourself.
But you're always waiting for somebody to tell you what to do. You're always waiting for it to turn around and say, right, this is the time you go to bed, this is the time you clean your teeth, this is the time you have your dinner. And so if everything is set by the clock, the time that we've invented essentially as a species, which does have its place, has its place, it is useful, but it's understanding that it's in many respects a man-made concept in the sense of how we approach time, the 24-hour clock, etc., etc. And if you only live by that, then all of a sudden existing outside of that becomes very difficult, and self-regulation becomes very difficult, discipline becomes very difficult, because all you are is going by the tune of somebody else's song, and you've got to write your own lyrics.
And also it's that horrible adult phrase, do as I say, not as I do. How many adults do you see saying you must have limited screen time, and you can't have it outside of these hours, and they're there on their phone, like where their kids are playing in the playground,
Well, this
and they can't
actually
put that
happened to
down.
us.
Yeah.
This is how our eldest got into screens, because he would see us kind of doing our online stuff, and we kept trying to justify it as well, going, oh, but we're doing this for work, and it's researching this, and it's researching that, all of these adult things. And
They just see hypocrite.
they just go, hang on a minute, you said I can't do, but monkey see, monkey do. And
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
instead we then turned around and went, okay, that's a fair enough shout. You've seen us using it, and they're not going to use it the same way as you do, because their life is very different to yours. They're in a very different phase of their life. But you can definitely also guide through this whole process, and you can definitely have truthful conversations with regards to the risks associated and the potential dangers that lurk within the murky water. And you can have open, honest communication between yourself and your children, and in between your partners. And sometimes, and we disagree on a lot of these, and she says, hold on,
Disagreements are a healthy thing to model to children.
And then I'm like, no, I'm right. And she's like, no, I'm right. And then you realise that actually right is very, very obscure thing. It's more what is happening right now and what is going to be a best solution for everybody involved within the household, within your own home. Because if it's just battles, then it's not going to be fun.
I think my worst pet peeve with children's autonomy is when adults force them to say please and thank you and hug and say goodbye to people and hello to people, and just, can you even imagine if someone told you as an adult how to communicate with someone and who to feel comfortable with and how to communicate affection with them or not? I just think, it's really, you've got to put down that baggage that makes you worry about what other people think of you and how you parent and how your kids are coming across, whether they're polite, whether they're endearing, and just put that away, because it's nothing to do with anyone else. It's everything to do with your child feeling comfortable, to be able to consent and say no to what makes them feel uncomfortable, because otherwise they're going to be in that situation in the future where the wrong person is saying, you must do this to please me. Okay, well, I've grown up having to make everyone feel comfortable, so let's do this too. And the consequences are not going to be pretty. So consent does start at a really young age. It starts at a newborn baby. You tell your baby, even if you think they're not able to communicate directly back to you in your language what they want and feel, there's subtle signs of body language, and they can tell you when it's a no. And it's a really important lesson to teach, to be the change that you want to see, and let them have some agency over their bodies and their lives. And that's the key for me. It's not about Lord of the Flies and letting kids make all the decisions, but it is about them having the empowerment to say no when something's not right for them. Because I'm pretty much guessing you want them to grow up and not be adults that don't question leaders and their decisions. You want them to be able to say, hang on a minute, this doesn't feel right. I need to ask some questions here. and not just take it as blind authority.
Questions are very healthy, and you've got to ask questions of your children. Your children have got to be allowed to ask questions of you, because you haven't got all the answers. And funny enough, it's only by asking the questions and being open enough to turn around and face those difficult questions with your children, because you're in a space of thinking that you sometimes know best because you've got more experience over them, and so you can see what's coming. And that can be very frustrating for an adult. You're going, if you just listen. But are we listening? Are we listening? Because we would have had moments when we were younger and we didn't feel as though we were listened to. We thought as though we were being dictated to by a person who knew better about us than we did our own selves. And confidence comes from being allowed, it being okay to make
Learning
mistakes.
to trust yourself so that you
and
can
trusting
trust
your
your
own
children.
ability to resolve your mistakes and your complications and your anxieties and your fears. And so a lot of this that we go through as well, and we'll be doing more videos on this, is the world of emotions, because obviously as we're learning to trust ourselves and learning to trust our children and to take essentially risks, because it's a slightly unknown path, it's not all set out in stone, so there's going to be surprises. You're going to go through an emotional journey with that, and those emotions are going to take you high and low.
Yeah, lots of worry and fear about the toxic effects of sugar and too much screen and whatever. But I think overall we've got to also weigh that up against the toxic effect of imposing upon another human being's free will, which I think is one of the most irreversible psychological damage you can do to a human being. Which is why I personally love the concept of a democratic school, if you're going to go down the school route, where each child is given an equal voice. And if they don't want to learn to read and write at a certain age, that's their decision and that's their free will. And they live with the consequences of that. Because, when they need to do something, they will do it. And when they have a purpose for something, then it will happen.
And that's the good point on the emotional one there, because you've got this little book that turns around and tells you when a child should be able to do this, when a child should be able to do that. And then when they don't tick those boxes, up rises your worry. What am I not doing to help my child develop these skills, and so on and so forth? And actually the reality is it's that you're not dealing with the emotion of worry, of fear, of anxiety, and you're letting it spill out from outside of yourself rather than sitting with it and going, okay, can I trust this process? And true enough, when need arises, skills are acquired and learned, and not before. Okay, so we're not trying to prepare them for life. They are living life and they're acquiring the skills of life as they go through life. And we've seen it our own selves with our children. And we went through the worry and fear as well. Oh God, is Iotis ever going to want to read? And for years he didn't. And then all of a sudden it became applicable to him in his life, how he was living. And he went, I've got to do this thing called reading. We still haven't sat down and really read a book together or done phonetics or any of that sort of jazz. And he can now read a
he's an
book.
autodidact, which means he's a child that doesn't like other people teaching him. He's self-taught. So he can come to you with a question and ask you, and he will gratefully accept the answer. But if you go in there with an agenda or with a curriculum or with something that you'll want to impose on him, it's just not welcomed and it won't be received, and it will go in one ear and out the other. So it's absolutely pointless. I mean, of course, children making their own choices is also an age appropriate thing. So with toddlers learning to walk and getting out into the world, we don't let them run across the road and go, you learn by being hit by that car. Of course,
it's not a good lesson.
There's some things, as I said, that are irreversible, and natural consequences aren't the best idea, and that's one of those examples.
And you can still explain to the child why this time you are making the decision for them. Mm-hmm. And some people go, well, I haven't got the time to explain myself, and it's this case of
it's the difference between avoiding a meltdown and miscommunication, though. If you do explain 9 times out of 10, there might still be a release and output of emotion which you can validate. You don't need to push that feeling away. That it's really important that you validate.
Feel frustrated at this moment, that you don't feel trusted, and so on and so forth.
Exactly, but
I'm not ready for
I
you
need to do this because it's very dangerous, and and then you gently and gracefully help them through that process, because there are of course things like that are important, that the adults take the reins and take the decision on. But 9 times out of 10, most things, they just don't need that. It's adults imposing. You have to brush your hair so it looks neat for whoever we're going to see, and or the only time really we do hair brushing, and even then I tend to use my fingers because the hairbrushes hurt the tangles, is for ballet and gymnastics class, and that's because it serves a purpose. And I explained to us that you have to have your hair put up because the ballet teacher needs to see your posture, or when you roll in gymnastics it will get in your way and it can cause a hazard and a danger. And because then I've communicated the need to her, she's gone, okay, I understand. And say, okay, so this is how we're going to do it. How do you think we could best tackle brushing your hair? So then we agreed with managing it with the fingers rather than the hairbrush, and doing gentle ponytails, no tight ballet buns or anything like that, so nothing unnecessary. And so there's always a constant two-way communication process. It's a negotiation with you do have more life experience as an adult, but equally the child is very wise and they have good solutions too if you'll just listen to them. But if you always shut them out, you're not going to hear those solutions. Yes, mistakes. Adults are going to make them.
We're going to make them.
So yeah, that's our take on what choices kids can and can't make. Please share yours in the comments below, and if you'd be so kind as to subscribe to our channel, then you are more than welcome to comment with a question that you'd like to see covered in a future video. And we look forward to chatting to you again soon.